today, Dave and I are very happy to welcome John from Athos Commerce. Hi, John.
Hi, morning. How are you both?
Very well. You?
Good, excellent. Thank you.
Good. John is partner, EMEA partner manager at Athos. So if maybe, John, you could just talk us through what Athos is and what you do there.
Yeah, sure. Morning, folks. As Matt said, I'm one of the partner managers here in EMEA for Athos Commerce. Athos Commerce is essentially a product discovery platform. We take care of everything that a consumer would touch in terms of how they find and shop for products. And that ranges from off-site to on-site. Off-site would be how they engage with search engines, agentic search, marketplaces, and PLAs within social commerce as well. So that's product listing ads on social commerce.
Mm-hmm.
We take care of that part, and we do the feed optimization and the data syndication for those particular channels, as well as doing the on-site piece, which we're going to talk about today. And the on-site piece is search, merchandising, product discovery on-site with recommendations, product bundling, and loads of other elements as well in terms of the analytics and how that can feed back into having one-to-one rich personalized experiences.
Great, thank you. So normally with this show we kind of take a look at the overall kind of UX of a website and the design and the user journey and stuff. But as John's here, we're going to tap into his expertise and just look specifically at the product search and discovery elements of a few sites. But before we do that, if we just kind of have a bit of a chat about how search has evolved over the past couple of years. I think, like you mentioned, if we start with the off-site stuff, I mean, from my point of view as a kind of a layperson, I think most people out there who are not in the e-commerce world have noticed the evolution themselves in the way that Google presents its results from the introduction of the AI overview and the layout of the carousels of the different things that it presents to you. And then, of course, there's the rise of the agentic stuff and the LLMs. And I feel like a lot more people are now starting to search directly through things like ChatGPT, and actually shopping is going to become a part of that.
Oh, totally. And I think what brands are finding is some of this traffic is coming through some of the agentic tools. And the agentic tools currently, yes, the announcement recently with Shopify and OpenAI, that they're branching into the realm to make things shoppable and buyable within the agentic tool sets. So the agentic tools are not sitting on a device. It's the new shift away from browser-based searching to this app component-led searching. But the biggest shift is a shift away from keyword intent searching, very specific, quite narrow search terms, to conversational. Now, in order for this to succeed, personally speaking, and I think a lot of people in the industry are saying it, this comes down to how the agentic tool sets are being fed and how they understand what is being fed and what is being requested. So product data is essentially key to all of this. And product data needs to be, we're at a point where it needs to extend to contain a little bit more granular attributes around usage and sentiment and emotion. And this is really exciting in the world of product data. So going back to 2012, when I was working in a marketplace, product data was key. And product data seemed to sort of die off a cliff in the last sort of 10 years running. Mm-hmm. But it's only now that it's becoming relevant again. And we don't know where it's going to end up. I don't think any of us on the call, and even to the audience, we don't know where it's going to end up. But it's here and it's now. And yes, we might be limited to purchasing one particular product through a number of limited merchants, but it will change and it will evolve. And I think since we planned this original conversation, we're getting changes every week. Mm-hmm. So it's a very, very exciting time to be in this e-com space and to be fortunate enough to be in product discovery. Yeah. So now, having said that, if the agentic element becomes another channel, such as a traditional search engine or social commerce and a way to find products and to purchase products, we can't, forget about the traditional website. The traditional website is where the brand has its content, its domain, its brand identity as well, and the way, it shows multiple products. Mm-hmm. So I think today as we move, we'll come back to agentic maybe at the end, mm-hmm. but I think this is important to say, to a number of brands and retailers and merchants out there are still ways to optimize your current site to improve conversion. Because ultimately, we're in an industry. Sorry, I will stop talking in a minute. We're in an industry where we have 3% conversion as an average from traffic coming in. in terms of conversion, it isn't good enough. What we're doing with the 97%, are we presenting non-relevant products that are out of stock, products that aren't available, sizing incorrectness, and then somebody comes to a site and then they have a poor experience in terms of the UI. So there are a number of optimizations that we can do on site to improve that conversion rate.
So you don't think this isn't spelling the death of the website?
Not spelling the death of the website. I think people that know me say I've been talking around this for 4 or 5 years. I think the structure of the websites are going to change. 5, 8 years ago, the homepage was a winner. What we were doing with the homepage, it's turned into a vanity piece, a brand piece now. It still has some worth. I think the rise of what we can do with the PDP is becoming more important. And the PDP is more important now than the listing page. And if you look at the way the agentic UIs are behaving, it's almost structuring like mini PDPs that surface within the UI of the agentic app, So I think listing pages, not yet. And I've had many an argument with many people in the industry saying that it's still key. They are key from an SEO perspective currently. But I think the way that people navigate using, multiple taxonomies and category structures may well change.
Okay. Interesting, yeah. So should we, with that said, should we take a look at the first website and kind of examine what they're doing well, and what they could maybe improve?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
If you'd like to share, Dave. So I'm going to start with Carhartt.
Yeah, so this is Carhartt Whip and work in progress. And if Dave just hovers here, now this is a personal opinion. And yes, in the header, they have a CTA for search. Now, I've had many conversations with designers and people that work within themes, within platforms and templates within platforms, whether the search input box should be exposed at land. I think within the way that the world is changing and the way that search is becoming not just keyword but conversational, search needs to be really prominent. Now, from a brand perspective, there's a it's a relatively small piece of small real estate.
Yeah.
So it's important to have the taxonomy and lots of contact information and login details. If it's B2C as well as B2B. So I think in the first instance, I think that search should be exposed, and I know there's counter arguments against it.
I was going to ask John just out of interest, because that seems kind of logical to me as well. What are the arguments against it? What are the kind of things that people say in opposition to that?
Well, it depends on how it's been designed and output, because obviously I think today we're going to be focused purely, we're looking at a desktop site, and again, we're not going to, today's conversation isn't around about the split on devices. And I think from a design perspective, it's got a nice aesthetic there, really. You can see where the search input is. And then if Dave does clicks on the CTA, then you've got a slightly different experience. So the overall header disappears and search becomes prominent. So from a design perspective, somebody's come up, with this particular design output, and it works. Yeah. And utilizing, the technology behind that, you can start to see that real estate is a lot richer, and then allows the brand to start promoting some elements. Yeah. So I think it's a personal taste thing, Matt, tell you the truth, around whether search overlay. But I've mentioned before, like when H&M changed their navigation and search input in terms of the header, people were a bit, that was 5 years ago. Arquette came, and Arquette had a very prominent open search input as part of that hero header. And I think that's just a shift. I'm not a purist, but I think it's important to have the search overlay. And then with the search, sorry, Matt.
So I was just going to say on that, I did read a report recently that where the conclusion was let people search instantly, and every time it was tested, conversions went up.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Baymard and what Baymard, present in terms of that search input, and the same as Gartner, when Gartner start looking at search, you have an exposed search input, you immediately enable the user to interact and find products quicker, and we've got to bear in mind sorry, Dave.
Oh, sorry, John. What I was going to say, I think quite an interesting choice here is that you only see the search icon once you've got the overlay. And if you think of it as a kind of like a road sign, the icon, I would have thought, obviously this is just a choice, but that you would see the icon sooner
Yes.
Because that's going to draw the the customer into it, and seeing obviously the word search, the signifier that there's a search option, but having that icon there would kind of mark the start of that journey. So
great point, Dave, because I think obviously the realms where you work in and what you're looking at in terms of that granular detail, I think it's a brand's choice whether they use an icon-led CTA or whether they use a textual-led. And sometimes from a clarity and lean design perspective, if they don't have other icons that they want to use, then maybe not an icon. But you could counter the argument with that and say, well, if that's the case, then you make the search icon very obvious. And the search icon, the magnifying glass, it hasn't changed for years, has it?
Yeah.
And people it's just built into our understanding of how headers and size work. So I think that's a great point, and I think it is a brand personal taste, a designer, or agency taste as well.
Yeah,
and it's now prominent, as you're showing, Dave. It's now prominent, and within that, that's a big piece of real estate that's being presented. It's presented on top of the header. The header disappears, but now the user knows I'm going to interact. I've got an intent here to look for something, and I think if we move on to the next point, as I said, the shift of agentic keyword, but in this instance, we're going to actually look at keyword and the split and the understanding of keywords, and almost what we call a decompounding of a structure of a string to understand differences, and how brands can really bring in synonym management.
Sorry, John. The decompounding of a structure of a string.
Yeah. Sorry. So the decompounding is sometimes a good example, and we don't have one to hand here, is like a table lamp or a lamp table. And if the words are together, then if somebody's looking for a table lamp, they will look for the lamp, which is the second part of that string.
Yeah.
And a lamp table, it could be a term for a table that is designed like a lamp, But then there's a connotation, and understanding is actually what the intent is here. The intent is not from a lamp table perspective. I'm looking for a table. If I'm looking for a table lamp, I'm not looking for a table. So that's what we call decompounding. And so we're going to use an example here of an overshirt. Now there's two words to combine together. And I think as Dave, you can play around with the string itself, and I'll talk a little bit, for what I think is good and what I think is bad within this. And, and when I say bad, it's not bad. It's just a personal taste.
Yeah, of course.
So when Dave first lands and the cursor hasn't got any input at all, we've got a set of recommendations. Now, the recommendations, you can see here, there's two CTAs. There's the recommendations and the editorial. And we know that content is king as well at the moment. And we know that content is really important for aiding that conversion. So the first land, you get a set of recommendations. These are merchandise products that will appear for a particular non-logged in user. If Dave was logged in as a user, then these could and likely would be different based on previous purchase history, previous browsing session, clickstream data. So as Dave types, what's very interesting here, as the string completes for overshirt, so Dave's seeing something that, okay, first few keystrokes, nothing appears. Doesn't quite understand what that word is. Complete the word over, it moves to an editorial piece. So the editorial piece is looking at outerwear and overshirts and overjackets. And then if Dave carries on into SH to complete the keystroke, what should happen is that it should go back to the recommendations. So it's staying with editorials, but Dave's trying to complete the word overshirt. And now the platform should understand that I'm looking for an overshirt. So again, personal taste. Do you go back to products, as we see here now? So on that last keystroke after H, and I know we're getting a bit granular with individual characters, but you can see the strength of being able to manipulate what you're presenting back to a user based on these inputs. So we're at a point now we've got over SH, and yes, it's predicting that Dave's looking for an overshirt, which he is doing. And this is just an example. We could go deeper into this and go work shirt, overshirt, even typos and, overshirt spelt as overshit. It will understand that I'm looking for an overshirt. There's an auto correction in place.
Yep.
And I think that's the way that the platform does the decompounding, also using synonyms and taking these individual structural word elements and wrapping them in directional relationships. So over could be related to an overshirt as well as over and outerwear, but shirt is only related to shirt. So then you could have additional synonyms around shirt as well, in what a shirt is and what a shirt represents. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Cool. And another example, if we could go to because there's another example we want to use in terms of this overlay, and from a design perspective, I've got designers that would argue with me and say this overlay takes up too much headway. You can't then navigate out. But if somebody is interacting with search, they are searching. They are not trying to do anything else. They are trying to search for a product. It is good to give recommendations. It's good to give editorial. And it's also to give some, what we tend to find with a number of our customers is that, popular searchers, other people have searched for in terms of relevancy to what the products are showing and what that search input is, rather than just generic. So I think we've got another site, haven't we, as an example? I think if we can go to the other site, Dave.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was Drake's, I think.
Drake's,
Yeah. Share something else.
And Drakes.com. And so as Dave's getting that up, this is the same piece that we're going to talk about. And these are the good elements, So here, a nice lean header. And again, we just talked around this, is that, whether you've got your logo on your left or right hand side, it tends to be traditionally left hand, and then you've got the mega nav or the main taxonomy tier 1 categories displayed. And as Dave pointed out, we've got the search icon. We've got the magnifying glass exposed with the text element, from a usability perspective, saying it's a search input.
Yeah.
And if you just click on that, Dave, then there's a slightly different experience here that not many people will see. You've got, I've just got to take my glasses off. You've got your popular categories here, and that's immediate. And that's a merchandised overlay. What's also good here is, like, on the left-hand side, away from the popular categories, that component there of popular searches and useful searches and suggested collections, it should change. So I don't know if we want to try this, Dave, and we're doing this real time. We didn't prep this, so I think the useful pages should stay static because it's about us, the FAQs, the contact us, delivery information, and then popular searches again are just merchandise searches that users and the genomic aspect of consumers on the site have been interacting with. So why don't we try overshirt again?
Yeah, why not?
So very similar behaviors as you complete the short string. This site really, really rapidly brings what that keyword understanding is.
Yep.
And then you can see, like, the overshirt is an over jacket. And then as we carry on with the S and the H, it's focused purely on products. And I'm just hoping that we do get, there we go. And then we get to the point where we've got an overshirt. So this is now not even completed the I like the Carhartt site did, but Drake's is going SH after over. I am understanding that this is likely to be a completed overshirt now in terms of the input. And it's focusing on products, not articles. And again, I think that's a personal taste reference here. I'm not going to, Carhartt wanted to show articles. Articles are here from a navigation perspective. You want to, somebody could go off here. There is a counter argument as well, which I think you guys are well aware of, is it product first versus article? Article is a research piece. But if somebody's landed on the site and are interacting with search, I would tend to advise that brands can really hone in on products because you want them to convert. You want them to then click on the product, go into a PDP, click on a collection, go into the collection, further refine using filters, and then find our product and then check out.
Yeah, I agree, John. I think with articles, I mean, like as you say, this is a purely a taste thing, really, I guess. but I would probably advise to go with product. If people are reading articles, they'll have been linked to an article from social media or maybe a friend or whatever, and that's to get them interest in the product. If they're on the website already, they're looking for a product, aren't they? They're not looking for articles to read. I wouldn't have thought.
Exactly. And as we said, chaps, at the start of the conversation, agentic, but if we take traditional methods, the way that a customer or a prospect or a consumer would enter the site, they would have been using traditional search engines. They would have been interacting with PLAs on social channels, maybe not done the conversion on the social channel, but link through. And then link through that referring incoming URL. 90% of the time, they're going to be, if they've been looking at a specific product, they're going to be landing on the product page. So they've already done their research piece. They've been using traditional search engines or social channels, done the research, land on the product, and therefore that PDP, I know we're not talking about PDPs today, that's another topic that we'd like to. The PDP should do its job, ensure that the product is available to buy in the size that they're after. Mm-hmm. So if somebody does that product isn't available for whatever reason, that hasn't been a great experience, but then they go back and interact with search, that's where search really enhances that conversion capability. So if they've looked at a product come off from a product listing ad, or whether they've come from a traditional search engine input and display, they then need to be able to find an alternative or a suitable. And that's why, why search is key. And I know there's other elements to search, but we're going to focus on search today. And yes, the rise of agentic and new channels and new ways of searching, just simple things about improving the search input, as we've just been discussing. Yeah. And I think we have an example of one where maybe some improvements could be undertaken.
Yeah. I was going to say, just before we leave this one, this is probably quite a basic point, but I quite like them having the word search and the icon. So I just feel like it just removes any guesswork, doesn't it? Because I know we've said that the magnifying glass is kind of a universally recognised symbol, but there are going to be some people that don't know it. I mean, this is I'm going to have to edit this bit out, but people are stupid, I think. And, you've got to, there are going to be some people who don't get it. You've got to make it as simple as possible.
So you guys are probably going to know more than me, because again, this is an edited out piece. In terms of accessibility, are you doing work in accessibility when you're doing your QA piece? Are you signing off based on usability and accessibility? Because I don't know whether icon and text have a greater score than just having an icon.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's if we cut back in now, make this actual material. So discussing accessibility around the search, we're talking about the kind of recognisability of the icon. I think, for example, the idea we've got the word search, the actual word search there. You have the icon as well, just to make doubly sure. There's kind of a security thing there, where both those routes are kind of like checked off. I think it doesn't matter necessarily whether somebody recognises the icon as a magnifying glass and thinks, oh, so that's why, it's a magnifying glass, that's search. They'll see that shape, and they've seen it so many times on so many websites that they know that it's the search
like
bar.
Muscle memory, Dave, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's that icon is just entwined into our way of thinking of how we interact with sites.
And I think talking about that kind of like UX, UI kind of element of it as well, as you were saying earlier, John, about the kind of the form of the header as it's laid out, where you've got the logo typically tends to be on the left, and then we've got the kind of like the nav options across the top, and then you've got the search on the right. I was thinking that's kind of like the geography of you kind of like travelling onto a website. You arrive there, and we in our language we read from left to right, don't we? So we look in the top left corner, we see where we are. We intended to be on the Drake's website, for example. That's good, and then we're offered where we can go. Yeah. We look through those, and if we're stuck, we see all those options. We're like, I don't think that relates to anything I'm actually looking for. Then the next option we see as we go to the right, so, well, where do you want to go? And that's the search bar, isn't it? So
and as we said, we're for the purpose of this webinar, we're looking at desktop because it's easier to navigate, and we're not manipulating through different viewports. And with a traditional header, it was always years ago when we first started building mobile first sites, looking at the burger structure and the taxonomy structure of the mega nav, and then re-representing that into the UI was difficult. But the search icon, as we said, has always been key from any viewport perspective, because it's instantly recognizable. And the main thing is translating this from a desktop design into to a mobile or a smaller viewport or device design. You've got to be able to interact with that search input. One thing we haven't covered today, and we probably haven't got time for it, is to see how that would then act as voice. So I'm now seeing a number of sites that have got a little microphone icon that sometimes can be, sitting within the search input. And they hit that depending on the device, and again, we all know that's browser restriction behavior as well. But that is a slight change as well. But as long as there is an ability to clearly input what I'm looking for and what I'm trying to get from this particular interaction, then I think that's good design,
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really good points.
Yeah, cool.
Lovely.
And then I suppose as we're staying on this, and then I think I sent you guys an example. I think this is a redundant site now, but it's a good example that we might be having many brands who will pick up on this, and then they'll look at their own site and say, well, my site's a bit like this. So the cheese shop, and again, a couple of things here. I'm not going to go from a design audit perspective. The plus side, find your cheese. We talked about search input. This is great. It's a great statement.
You know what, John? I was going to mention, if you hadn't mentioned that, I was going to, because that just sells the character of the whole thing, doesn't it?
I mean, that's a great usage of language. It's like, find your cheese. Exactly. Because I'm here and I'm going, I've got to shop now. That often confused me when I'm on a site. I've got to shop now, and in the header, I'm already shopping. So, it's the cheese shop. I'm going to shop now. Okay, what if I click that, where am I going to go? But I'd rather find my cheese. So, to be honest, from a design perspective, they should just have that as a massive search input.
As a T-shirt, John? They need to be selling merch.
I think you're onto something, Dave. And again, so here, this is, using the examples of the other two sites that we just talked about, the input here, there's the cursor clicks, flashes. I'm not going to talk about having the overlay box when you land on it, but there's nothing here. So I've got to type. So and I didn't tell you this, Dave, but there's some like red Leicester.
Cool.
I know they've got some red Leicester cheeses, but I put in red. I don't get anything.
Do you have to hit return to?
Yeah. So that's a step too far, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's probably what was all right 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah, and again, we're not dissing this particular site, but this is, if anybody who are currently watching this do have a search input box and do not have an overlay, and I'd suggest that you speak to somebody and look at getting an overlay.
Absolutely.
And from that overlay, what we're doing here, we're doing a contextual input based on a keyword or a set of words that create a string to understand what that consumer is looking for. So we're a cheese shop. We sell red Leicester. We should be able to look at the word red and instantly know that product attribute is associated to a number of SKUs that are on the site. And something we haven't discussed, but to make sure we're not running out of time, we haven't got any examples here, but like color normalization and weight normalization is important, and we have an ability to handle this, and I'll just explain what that is. So red, it could be cherry, it could be maroon. So you've got an ability within certain search platforms and merchandising platforms to make this normalization link, so it will understand that red could also have any form of these inputs, and it's a real winner, because we do a lot of work in the fashion industry, same as you guys. Somebody might be talking around a color that's peacock. If I say peacock, what color is it to you guys?
Blue.
Blue, green.
Yeah, blue, green, maybe a bit of purple, and then camel. probably brown.
Yeah.
So to be able to have the high level color attribute, because bearing in mind we're looking at product data, as we said at the start, that product attribute might be, it's camel, that's its color, but it doesn't have an associated brown link to it in terms of the product data set.
Mm-hmm.
But certain platforms like ours and others can actually normalize that data and therefore make that data richer. And then, so then if you hit search, we get the search results. So it's just an example of utilizing overlay. Yes, there might be people on I mean, Dave, we've chatted about performance on overlays. Sometimes if you've got a non-performant overlay, it could slow that journey down. But if we go back to the Carhartt and the Drake examples, it hijacks the header because we know that somebody is searching for something. Why not hijack the header? Because they don't want to go anywhere else. You don't want to add any more noise into the mix. You don't want them then to looking about us. That's why other pages are there in the left-hand component within that overlay. Utilize an overlay. Work with you guys, build it efficiently, so you've got a nice lean delivery of that overlay from that front end sitting on the homepage. And what we've been doing today, we've been looking at the homepage, but that search input, that should be through the entire journey through the structure of the site.
Yeah.
You could argue maybe not when you get to checkout and mini cart, but even within a mini cart and a cart, there's an ability. We haven't talked about the realms of recommendations and cross sells and upsells.
Yeah.
But search is still key.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got to give these key pointers to browsers to say, okay, there's still a possibility to find something else that you want and increase the AOV.
Absolutely, yeah.
Lovely. Thanks very much, John.
Cool.
So for any brands watching them, what would be your kind of top 5 recommendations? If they're watching this thinking, our site isn't really up to scratch with this stuff, where would you kind of guide them to start?
I guide them to start to do their own audit. And it's a bit tricky. Brands might not have the skill sets. There are people available to do audits, such as ourselves and yourselves, and there's a bit of a sell, so we might need to edit that one out. But I'd recommend understanding what components all relate to search. So if we go down back to the basics and what we said right at the outtake and right at the start, it's product data.
Mm-hmm.
So ensure your product data is as standardized as possible. And we're in the realms of working with platforms where you have an ability to create different product types and product data types according to products and SKUs. But I think if you have standardization, it allows you to build a really, really rich index. And from that rich index, you can really hone in on relevancy when somebody is searching. It's important to understand whether you currently have a platform that you're just looking at keyword search, or you have a hybrid search, which is a combination of keyword and vector search, which some of the new technologies, which allows for conversational search.
Mm-hmm.
So conversational search still could be enabled within your own site, and that's a case of just understanding what that context is and what that intent is. So from product data, good rich product data, nice and structured. Then look at the UI components, and as I said, I think what we've just honed in on is like there's a lot more to search than what we've just discussed. But some of the fundamentals. Item number 2 is that search input.
Mm-hmm.
Is the search input and how it operates on the site. Mm-hmm. Is it fixed? Is it sticky? Is it hidden? Is it hard to find? How should it be consistent? Should it be consistent through the rest of that consumer journey? Synonyms again, that's going back to data, but understanding what people are searching for. So I think we haven't really honed in on this, but there's an ability to look at the analytics around what people are searching for. Take that data, use that data, create campaigns around that data, but understand that people are searching for elements that you might not have thought about.
Mm-hmm.
So they may be searching for a term that you as a brand you're not aware of, but you realize what they're searching for, and then you can associate that to products.
Yeah.
And then I think just, like the last part is, yes, you've got to have auto correction, understanding typos. We haven't talked about this because luckily all of these sites don't have it. Is like, we can't find what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Blank page. That is, nobody should be doing that. If any brands are on the call and any brand has a can't find what you're looking for and have a blank page, talk to us together. Because you need to monetize that real estate. You need to productize it. You've got to put recommendations on. You've got to put upsells on. There's still a number of sites out there, and we know this, and we see it daily. There, whereby we can't find what you're looking for, but it's just a white page. It's the internal SERP. The search results page. It's blank. It shouldn't be this day and age.
Excellent. All good tips. Thank you very much, John. A final question from me.
Yep.
In the history of e-commerce, has there ever been a single psychopath who has searched by price high to low?
Yes. And yes, and we've, I know it's not about our product, but we've just brought in some price relational search capabilities. So, not price high to low, but somebody might search for trainers under £100, Nike Jordans under £100.
Yeah.
And then we start seeing these terms. And if they keep searching these terms, then we can realize that they've got a budget. So we can understand the monetary value. And put them into a segmentation process for it becomes dynamic pricing, relevancy. Search from high to low, I think, is for another topic, because then that gets into filters. And then when you get into filters, when you've got the filter is like sort by relevancy, and is like, what the hell does that
mean? Absolutely. Yeah.
What does that mean from a consumer's perspective? I'm like, how do I know it's relevant? You as a brand, you're telling, you control that. Because you've got to understand me, and if you don't understand me, then you've got to take a guess. Based on data.
That's another really good point, John. Yeah.
Maybe we could do a follow-up episode on filters.
Follow up on filters. I could talk all day about filters. Yeah. And to be honest, just on that part of it, filters. Going back to one of your really good questions, Matt, it's the death of the site. It isn't the death of the site. I think platforms are going to change the structure and the way that the experience operates from a consumer perspective. We're talking about different generations using different inputs. The younger generation are definitely growing up with agentic, and they may well never even shop on a website. So, but it still has a place, and we still know that these small acorns that are starting an agentic are small, but it's the pace of change that's important. But it all starts with product data.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. And how do people find you, John?
You can find me on LinkedIn or athoscommerce.com, john.brolly at athoscommerce.com for my email. Happy for anybody to reach out to me at any time and have a conversation with me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. That was really interesting. And for everyone watching, thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.